Alright, hi everyone. Today we are going to be talking about animals and their habitats. The objectives for today are we're going to investigate a variety of familiar and unfamiliar habitats and describe how plants and animals can survive there. And we're going to review the basic needs for survival for different animals. This is just some notes on the different standards and the grade. So this is second grade for science. The topic is habitats. The standard is 3.0 Life Science Ecology, and we are going to be able to explain that organisms can grow and survive in many different habitats. Alright, so first let's review. Do you know what plants and animals need to survive? Let's take a look. Can click on this animal survival scratch to see a little review on what animals need to survive. Alright, so to start, we're going to press the green flag. So first, let's take a look at the fox. You can press the space bar to see what the fox has to say. And he says, "Hi there, I'm a fox, and like many other animals, I need food to live. I live in many places, including the desert." And if you look at the instructions again over here, it says click on the fox to see more of what he has to say. So we'll go over and click on him. He says, "I live in the same habitat as a dingo." So remember that for the next part of the lesson, that a dingo and a fox live in the same habitat, and it was the desert. Next, we're going to go back over to the instructions, and we are going to click the lioness. She does a little turn. Next, we're going to press the up arrow to see what the lioness has to say. And she says, "Roar, I'm a lioness, and like many other animals, I need water to live." I'm going to press the down arrow to see what the lioness has to say. She says, "I also live in the desert where it's hard to find water. Later in this lesson, you will find out how animals who live in the desert get their water." Next, we're going to click the monkey. Go back over to the instruction side. I'm going to press the right arrow on your keyboard to see what the monkey has to say. He says, "Hello, I'm a special monkey who lives in the rainforest. Something that I need in order to survive is shelter. Where do you think I find shelter?" If he lives in the rainforest, I'm thinking maybe he lives in the trees, he lives in the grass, maybe he makes shelter with his family. Let's see, we can press the letter A on your keyboard. If you guess that I find shelter in the trees, you are correct. I find shelters in the trees just like my neighbor species, sloths. So make sure you remember that sloths and monkeys live in the same habitat, which is the rainforest. Next, we're going to click on the polar bear over here. And the instructions say press the letter C to see what the bear has to say. It says, "Hola, I'm a polar bear, and like my fellow animals, I need water to live. I live in the Arctic tundra where it's very hard to find water." You can press the letter D to see what else he has to say. To find water, I use some of the bodies of water that aren't completely frozen. So in the tundra, it's super cold, it's hard to find water, whereas in the desert, it's super dry and it's hard to find water there. So next, we're going to go back to our smart notebook over here. So the first habitat is the Arctic tundra. The Arctic tundra can be located in Antarctica, which is down here, right where that's the circle is that I just drew. So in Antarctica, the ground is permanently frozen, but there's water for the animals to find food. There's long, cold winters and short summers, and it's very dry. One second. So next, let's drag this to see what animal. So the polar bear is what we looked at before, and it says the polar bear eats meat. It has black skin underneath fur to absorb sun, sharp teeth and claws for hunting and walking on ice. So since it's so cold in Antarctica, the polar bear has black skin to absorb sun to keep him warm. The next one we have is the desert. We remember that the dingo and that the fox live in the desert, although the foxes live in many different other habitats. So the desert could be in Australia, which is right around here. And in Australia, it's very hot and dry. It's called the land of extremes. We can try to think. Why do you think it would be called the land of extremes? What does the word extreme mean to you? You can write down what you think extreme means. I would say the land of extremes, it's because it's so hot there and it's very dry, so the resources, it's very hard to find resources to live. It only rains 10 inches per year, which really isn't a lot, and the temperatures are as high as 100 degrees during the day and 50 degrees at night. And we have the dingo. The dingo eats other mammals, and they live in large packs to hunt. So they're not on their own. They have their family members to help them out. And they descend from dogs. They sleep during the day, and then they go out at night just because it's so hot. So the fox and a dingo, they have a lot in common if you remember the scratch that we just did. Next we have saltwater. In the scratch we didn't have an example of a saltwater animal, but that's okay. So for saltwater, it covers 3/4 of the Earth's surface. There's 5 different seas: the Pacific, Atlantic, Indian, Arctic, and Southern. So if you can think of what sea we go swimming in when we go to the beach, when we go to Ocean City, it would be the Atlantic, if any of you remember that. And we're be right over here, the Atlantic Ocean. An animal that lives in saltwater would be a dolphin, and they breathe through a single blowhole, and they live in small groups called pods. They eat fish and squid. Have any of you ever seen a dolphin? I know I have. They're pretty cool when you see them. I've seen them in the Atlantic Ocean. Alright. Next we have the rainforest. If you remember that the monkey lived in the rainforest, and it's located in South America. It's down here, and they contain more than half of the world's plant and animal species. It's tall, dense, and it's a jungle, and there's warm and wet weather, so it rains a lot. And if you remember, the monkeys find shelter in the trees. Another animal, if you can remember from the scratch, is a sloth that lives in the rainforest. And a sloth is the size of a small dog with short, flat heads, and algae grows on their coats, and that camouflages them from predators so they don't get eaten or hunted. And they eat fruit, leaves, twigs, and they have claws to swing from trees, so they also find shelter in trees. And maybe you guys can think to yourself other animals that would live in the rainforest that might find shelter in trees. Next, we have a little game. So you are going to have to drag the animal that lives in South America. So let me think. South America could be the rainforest. I don't think it would be a dolphin. No, the dolphin's not going to work. Maybe the dingo? Dingo doesn't work either. The sloth. So the sloth lives in South America, lives in the rainforest, just like the monkeys that we saw in our scratch game, our review game. Next, which animal lives in Australia? If we remember that Australia was the desert. So let me think. I know that the fox lives in the desert. And what was the animal that also lived in the desert? It was just like the fox. Thinking it would be a dingo. And the dingo it is. Let's see if the dolphin would work too. Nope. The sloth wouldn't work either. Not the bear, so you know it has to be the dingo. And for your exit ticket, I want you guys to draw a picture of your habitat. What do you need to survive? Make sure you include where you live, what you eat, and what you wear. Then give your picture a caption consisting of 2 to 3 sentences describing your habitat. So you guys can type this in right down here. You can add a text box and type in your response, and then you can submit it back in with this presentation. Alright, so I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great day.